So, right, so I'm gonna give you my so my whole concept around writing movies or books, or it doesn't make a difference. Like whatever piece that I'm writing is pretty much the same. So like here, I'll start with just an idea. I know it's kind of hard for you to see, like, and that's longer. That's the whole thing, but that's longer than the idea that I usually put in. And I usually just put in something. It starts with write this movie, right? And I'm gonna read this one to you. It says write this movie. It said the movie is called The Shortest Black Horror Film Ever. And there's always a joke about black folks in horror films. Like, first of all, it'd probably be real short because we'd be like, nah, I'm not going in there, or we get killed first, one or the other. But it says write a film about the making of a horror film. So the film is about the making of a film. Um, but the issue is that the actors wouldn't stay in the haunted house. Like, these are all black actors. They go in the haunted house to shoot the film. They're like, nah, I'm not doing it. Um, and then but the film is about making the film, and so the film directors and everything, they're like telling them, hey, you did tell them this wasn't real, right? And then the whole movie is about trying to convince them to come back and make the movie. Um, all for them to in the end do the same thing and end up being like, nah, I'm not doing it. Um, and they throw everything in it. They throwing money at them. They throwing fame. They throwing drugs, blackmail, everything to try to get them to come back and do this movie. And in the end, they do the same thing. But the big kicker is it ends up being real. It actually is haunted. Like it's not. It's, you know what I'm saying? So they find that out. So that's the whole idea, right? And so then I would take. Um, Let me see. And I would start saying, just now this is a little longer. I know you can't read it, um, but this is my movie Unhero. And what I will do is I will just take the big concepts. Okay, so I'll give you the concepts of the movie. This particular movie is one where we've seen movies where you have good guys and you have bad guys, right? And they're shooting at each other. Now, when the good guys and bad guys are shooting at each other, who usually has the better guns?
The bad
The
guys.
bad guys. But what's the problem with their better guns?
They're better?
Yeah, but they're shooting and are they usually hitting?
No,
No.
never.
They're not hitting. Yeah, yeah. They're just missing. They got all these great guns, machine guns and all, and they can't hit anything, right? And then you got the good guys got a little cap gun, right? Pow, 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 and shot all three of them. Well, this is a story about how the bad guys are trained. So it's a whole training facility.
You told us about this. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a whole training facility on how to train bad guys. So they're in there, they're learning how to lose a fight. If you ever, we can think back to like Neo when he's fighting all of those people uh in oh, what's the
The
Matrix?
Smiths.
In the Matrix.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the Smiths. And so they're taking their time. Like, one at a time, they learn how to fight. It's 40 of y'all, but y'all all take your turn. You learn how to, like, there's a shooting range, and you learn how to miss the target. Well, this one particular guy is a guy where he doesn't know he's supposed to be losing, and so he's in there, he's hitting targets, he's whooping people, he's about to get kicked out because, dude, you're supposed to be losing, right? And so I know the premise of the movie, right? And so then I'm like, what are the major things I want in the movie? Well, I want to make sure we get the scene with him doing the bullseye. I want to make sure we get the scene in where they're passing by different rooms and different fights are going on, and you can tell by the fights which henchmen these are. So one particular fight they're fighting, and you see like boom, pow, the whole, and that's the old school Batman, right? And so at somebody else, they're all in the same suit, and they're fighting. Well, that's Mr. Smith, you know what I'm saying, or Mr. Anderson. And so I know I want that in there. I know I want the him meeting the girl who does all the suits. So in there, the concept of there's a suit maker shop who makes the suits for the villains, but they also make suits for the superheroes because they farm that out. They to get more money, they make both sides, right? So all the superheroes come to the same shop to get their suits. So we have that, right? So I know the major things. I may have 5 or 6 major things that I want to put in the movie, and I just throw them up there. Then I may have about 15 different things I know I want to happen in the movie. I know I want them to fall in love. I know I want him to have a boss that's really just got promoted and he's really a jerk. I know I want him to have a best friend in it where the best friend is like, say, man, you're going to get kicked out. I know I want him to actually get kicked out and then get accepted to a supervillain where they actually do win, right? Supervillains whoop Batman's tail at times. They do win, right? So I know this. So a lot of things I know I want to be in it, I will just throw up on a sheet of paper. No order, okay? No order at all. I just throw it up there, okay? Then I will take and start putting a little order to it. What do I want to happen in order, okay? Then I will start flushing it out. What do I want to happen in between these things? You know, I won't go into detail, but I'll just say, okay, what kind of things I want to happen in between here. You know, I want them to get checked in, and after the check-in, what I want to happen. Okay, he go to his room, and you know, barracks or whatever, and that's when he meets his best friend. That makes sense, right? So I'll start putting a little order to it. I don't put words to it. Okay, I don't put like script, like what are they going to say? We're still just talking about the order. Okay, then I will go back through and say, okay, let me put about 2 or 3 bullet points under each one of these. Okay, he goes to his barracks. What I want him to do? I want him to meet his friend. I want him to give a little background on each other first. And I will say, you know, what do I want to happen? Okay. Now, then after that, I usually would have some type of characters at that point. You know I got Sarah over here who's going to fall in love with. Sarah has a boss named Kim. I know that, right? But before I write dialogue, I'm going to go back and write a character, some character background and profile on each one of these characters. Kim comes from a broken home. You know, and her mother worked all the time, right? And she just watched superheroes on TV all the time. And she got fascinated with fashion because her life was jacked up. And so she would escape to fashion. She would take her little dolls and knit little fashion stuff for him. So she's really, really into it because of her family. You know what I'm saying? Whereas maybe Rose didn't care nothing about that. She just needed a job. She was out on the street homeless and somebody came through. They had a gig. Hey, whatever. You know, so she doesn't care as much about fashion as she does just about being on this job. She don't care about none of these people, right? I just need to not be on the street, okay? Somebody else, you know, Rachel over here, she came from a privileged background. She got money. And her whole life was kind of slated for her, and she just decided to rebel against it. However, she's still on daddy's money, right? So, writing those character backgrounds lets me know how they're going to react to each other. Okay, so I will do that. So after I do that, then I go back and I start writing dialogue for each one of these quote unquote scenes. I don't number them yet because I don't know how many I'm going to have, right? But I'll start writing dialogue till it makes sense, right? Now, after I write that dialogue, I should be able to write it all the way to the end. Then I'll go back and say, okay, where are the holes in this story, right?
What is that?
So I may go, I may make a leap that is too big, and I didn't explain some things, like maybe I never explained what type of training facility this is, so I have to go back and have that come through one of the characters. Like, you know, this is a training facility for henchmen, man. We're supposed to be losing. When have you seen henchmen win in a fight? You know, I may have to go back and add that because I didn't explain it. I may have to go back and add. I may have not made it apparent that he likes her, and I went from they just met to now she's defending him and they're dating, but I didn't do the courtship. I made it too big of a leap. There's a hole there. At what point did they start liking each other, right? Did he like her first? Did she like him first? I'll look for those holes in the story where the leap is too big, and some things don't make sense. Yeah.
Oh. I thought you were saying hold. Okay.
No. Hole.
That makes more sense.
Holes. Holes.
Okay.
And so I'll look for that. Now, all of this sounds very complicated. It's really not. It's really easy, and it makes writing the movie very easy. It makes it more fluid because at the end, you're telling a story that you already know how it's going to end. Okay? It's great when I do that with books because that's when I can say in chapter 2 that, hey, we're going to learn more about this in chapter 10. I already know that because I already had the concepts for chapter 10. Okay? Now, once I do that, then I'm gonna let it rest for a minute, and I'm gonna let somebody else read it to see if it makes sense to them. Okay. Then I actually will go through and make it scenes. When I say internal, external, where the scene is, some different direction associated with it, all of that. Then I go through and make it real. But I will make sure to do all that other stuff. I'll make sure to do all the other stuff before I go through and make it real. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna tell you something else. And this is a secret. I do almost all of that while sitting on the toilet. I'm not doing nothing else. It's idle time. You'll be surprised at how much you can get done. I just sit on the toilet, man. Just knocking it out.
That's great. That's funny.
All of that was written. All of it. Sitting on the toilet.
And
Toilet
it's
time.
funny because I do the same exact thing.
Yeah. Toilet time, man. Toilet time. I remember years ago I was working for a job and I was doing tech support and it was back to back calls pretty much most of the day. And I began writing a movie. What's Next? My very first movie. I wrote it in 1995. I began writing that movie and wrote the whole thing between calls. It took like 3 months, but I wrote the whole thing between calls. And when I finished it, I'm like, man, this is interesting because this is a true manifestation of what it looks like. But the time between the spaces, you know what I'm saying? When you say the in-between time, the in-between spaces, man, this is a manifestation of what that could actually do. They can add up. They can quantify, right? And so that's what I did, and it made it a lot easier. I never have writer's block. I never have I never, in 20 years, 30 years, I've never had, any type of blockage like that. Like, oh, I couldn't think of this and I couldn't. And I've used that same process. I don't know what made me start using it. I've never heard anybody else that does use it. It may be common. It may not. I don't know. But it works for me. And when I've given that process to others, it works for them too when they use it. And so that way you're not trying to figure out where this story is going or how it's going to end or how they're going to do. You already know. By the time you start writing dialogue, you already know where it's going, right? And so it just makes sense. It makes sense to me.